Hey guys, it's me Elizabeth. Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing a video that I've never actually done for this channel. I've done different versions of top 10s. I've done my top 10 books of whatever year it is, or my top 10 movies, my top 10 TV shows. Like, I've done those. But you know what I haven't done? My top 10 books of all time. How have I not done that? This is a book channel. Like, what? So we're here to do the top 10 books of all time because it is actually a crime that I haven't actually done that on this channel yet. I have 5 honorable mentions and then we have the top 10s. It was extremely hard to come up with this list because there are so many books that I wanted to put on this list. I was making the list and I had some books on this list and then I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot that book. That has to be on this list. And then I was done with the list and I was like, okay, are there any more honorable mentions I could think of? And I thought of a book and I was like, how did I forget this? Number 1. And number 2, it doesn't fit on my top 10. Like, it's so sad. So, anyways, let's go through my top 10 books plus 5 honorable mentions. And the honorable mentions I'll just roll through super quick. And then we'll get into the top 10. Here are my honorable mentions. Most of these are classics, so sorry to disappoint fantasy people. First, we have a fantasy, and that is The Kingkiller Chronicles by Patrick Rothfuss. And we have Cheaper by the Dozen by Ernestine Gilbreth Carey and Frank B. Gilbert Jr. Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. Nicholas Nickleby by Charles Dickens. Number 1 on the honorable mentions, and that is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Guys, so we're going to start at the bottom and go to the top. My number 10 favorite book of all time is Beyond Band of Brothers by Major Dick Winters with Colsey Kingseed. Commander, Easy Company, 506 Parachute Infantry Regiment, The War Memoirs of Major Dick Winters. I think you might already know if you watch my channel that I am obsessed with anything related to the Band of Brothers. My obsession started with watching the TV show by HBO. I saw it multiple times, and one time I literally watched it and was like, I want to rewatch this immediately right after I finished it. I was just like, I want to rewatch this all over again. Like, I was literally had the strongest urge to rewatch it right after finishing it. I wanted to just go back to the beginning and rewatch it all over again. I usually, like, I think things are good and whatever, and maybe every once in a while I'll watch like a movie twice in a year or something, but I usually like watch things once in a year and that's good, and I don't rewatch things over and over again, like, in a row like that. But I really wanted to watch Band of Brothers all over again. I didn't, however. What I did do was I read the book, Band of Brothers. I started with Stephen E. Ambrose's Band of Brothers, which is what the show is based off of. And ever since then, I randomly found this book by Major Dick Winters himself. I have a Dick Winters obsession, apparently. And slowly that morphed into me finding Conversations with Major Dick Winters by Colsey Kingseed. If you didn't know, Colsey Kingseed is like Major Dick Winters' best friend in like normal life, not from like, he's not in the Band of Brothers. I've read both of those, and then I found some more books. I found a book by Larry Alexander about Major Dick Winters. I found a book written by Don Malarkey. I found another book written by someone else that I can't remember the name right now from Band of Brothers. Like, and there's more. There's more that I just haven't purchased yet because I don't have money. Like, it's a rabbit hole that I've gone down and I can't stop. So I will eventually be reading more. But out of all of those books, this is the best. This one's written by the man himself, Major Dick Winters. I say the man himself because he's kind of my favorite person to learn about within the Band of Brothers related content. Also, he's from Hershey, Pennsylvania. If you don't know, I live in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I live in Denver, Pennsylvania. And so that's like super close to where I live. And he's buried in Ephrata. I've never actually seen his grave because I just haven't. I don't know why. But I've passed it all the time. So that's really cool. And there's like a statue of him in like some sort of park or something. And I've seen that as well. It's just really cool. And his life is just really cool to learn about. And yeah, it's just really cool. And this is phenomenal, okay? Need I sell you any more on this book? Book number 9, we have The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. This is obviously 7 books. This isn't one book, but you get the picture. Let me know in the comments your opinion. Should you start where the story starts, or should you start in publication order? Like, which way do you read it? Which way do you think is the way to read it? Oh my gosh. C.S. Lewis. What can I say? I could put like 10 of his other books on this list as well. I should have put some in the honorable mentions, but I forgot. Everything that I've read so far that he's written has been like a 4 or 5 stars. Mostly 5 stars. So, like, phenomenal. If we're talking Narnia here, you already know what Narnia is. I don't need to talk about it. You already know, or you should know. If you don't, what rock have you been hiding under? Narnia. It's so good. Do I have a favorite book? Absolutely not. I don't know which one's my favorite. I don't know which one's my least favorite because I don't have any. They're all just amazing. I need to reread this series because I haven't read this in years. Me and my sisters, when we were kids, we listened to CDs before we went to sleep. And just about every night for years, we would listen to the audio dramatizations by Focus on the Family of Narnia. We would listen to them over and over again. I have listened to Dawn Treader so many times that I can't give you a number. I have listened to all of them so many times I can't give you a number. And I've read them physically like maybe 2 times. Something like that. But I need to reread these. It's been so very long since I've actually read the entire series. Next, number 8 on this list. A new one. We've added a new one to the list. I haven't read a series so quickly in a long time. This was just so phenomenal that I just had to add this. And that is Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Basically, I read this, or I listened to the audiobooks for all of them, I'm not gonna lie. But I read this like within a day, and then proceeded to listen to the next one immediately. And then when I finished the next one, I proceeded to listen to the next one immediately. And then I maybe took a little bit of a break between the first trilogy and the second trilogy. There's 2 trilogies that go. It's the Red Rising saga. And then I read the next one and read the next 3 like pretty close to each other as well. And if you know anything about my reading, I tend to start 5 different series and never actually finish them all. So, like, this, reading them back to back like that doesn't happen super often for me because there's just so many different things I'm interested in. But I did that with this, and this was just so good. The first 3 books in particular are amazing. I don't know if I could pick a favorite because I can definitely pick a least favorite because Iron Gold, we don't talk about Iron Gold. Iron Gold doesn't exist. I think even Pierce Brown may have regretted some of the things he did in Iron Gold. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought I heard someone say that. But, like, Iron Gold was a little bit of a dud. But if you get past the fact that Iron Gold wasn't very good, and then you read Dark Age and Lightbringer, you'll be wowed again and be like, okay, that was kind of worth it, because these are absolutely amazing. So, yeah, I didn't dislike Iron Gold. I still liked it, and I would still read it again because it's Red Rising. Like, I'm just obsessed. But it wasn't, like, as nearly as good as the other ones, and it definitely wasn't a 5-star. It was more of, like, a 3.5 star or something. So, it did go downhill in that book a little bit, but the rest of these books are phenomenal. Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Book number 7, we have Alexander Dumas's The Count of Monte Cristo. What to say about this book? It's very thick. It's about like 1,000 some pages, 1,400 some pages. So it's very long. If you like classics, if you like reading big books, if you can read long giant books that are classics, Count of Monte Cristo is so phenomenal. I cannot believe it. This book is, Alexander Dumas is quickly just like my favorite thing, and I've only read this book by him, but I am currently working on The Three Musketeers, which so far the bit that I've read is Alexander Dumas, so it's amazing. This book is one of the best things I have ever read. Obviously it's on the list. I wish I could have put it higher. I just gotta mention this. Don't watch the movie right after reading the book. That was the biggest mistake of my life, because I knew that the movie was going to be pretty off to the book. I knew there were going to be some things that were drastically wrong to the book. I knew that going into the movie, and yet watching the movie, I was horrified, disgusted, and didn't like it. Which is also very disappointing because I grew up watching that movie and I used to love that movie when I was a kid. How do you think that works? Made me so mad. I was like, oh no. So now I just kind of don't care for the movie, not gonna lie. Because after reading this masterpiece, obviously that's kind of hard to put into a movie. But it's not that they just left things out. It is the fact that the movie, nothing in the movie that happened in the book, except for the part where he is in prison. That's the only thing that's similar. Everything else about that movie doesn't exist in this book. Like, why are you calling this account Monte Cristo? Because, I mean, he does find treasure and become a rich guy. That kind of happens, maybe. But, like, the overall everything, it was just so wrong. I don't recommend watching the movie. Definitely recommend reading this book. Definitely one of the best things I have ever read in my entire life. This will forever be on the pedestal of one of the best classics to ever exist in humankind. Okay, number 6. We actually have a tie for number 6 because I couldn't not fit every single book that I put on this top 10. So I had to have a tie. Are these on the same level? Critically, maybe not. But in my enjoyment of them and how much I like them, they're on the same level. Next we have my second favorite classic of all time, Little Dorrit by Charles Dickens. This is one of the greatest masterpieces ever written by Dickens himself. It is the greatest masterpiece by Dickens that I have read at this point in time. This book, so good. What got me on to Dickens was Nicholas Nickleby, but what got me on to wanting to read every single book he's ever written was Little Dorrit. Let's be for real. Little Dorrit did that. And the whole reason that I read Little Dorrit was because of the TV miniseries done by BBC, which is my favorite period drama of all time. I just love that miniseries so much. It's so good. And does it follow the book exactly? No. You can't follow this book exactly. It's Dickens. It's not possible. And, like, it's not going to be perfect. But it does follow it pretty good for what it does have and what it does do. It does do a good job. So, I still love that miniseries. Like I said, it's my favorite. And this is just Dickens. It's Dickens. Need I say much more? His character work, his story, everything about it is just phenomenal. And in this book specifically, we are following the daughter of a guy who lives in the Marshalsea, Little Dorrit herself, Amy Dorrit, and she was born in the Marshalsea. So she's the only life she's ever known was being in this debtor's prison, and she cares for her father. She looks after her father, and following the start of this book, she goes out and basically gets a job and tries to earn some money or whatever. And we follow through this book, and as she gets this job, the son of the person that she's working for is, like, interested in her and why she's there, because his mother's not a good, nice person, and, like, very rare for her to be, like, a charitable person towards a random stranger. So he's like, I'm gonna investigate this, figure out, like, did we do something wrong to these people? Do we have something, like, is there some connection here? Because, like, what is happening? And so he ends up following her to the Marshalsea and finding out that she lives at the Marshalsea, and then he ends up becoming interested and decides that he's going to try and figure out if there's a way to get her father out of the Marshalsea. And this book is just phenomenal. There are millions of characters in every Dickens book, and this is no exception, but they are so well done. Even the villains are just so well done. And I just have to say, in the TV miniseries, the villain is played by Andy Serkis, and he does a phenomenal job. Like, he just does so well at being villain. Like, that's just, like, his perfect role. This is just phenomenal. And if you can't tell by my shelves already that I love this book, it is Aragon by Christopher Paolini. I literally own 4 different copies of this book, including, but not limited to, this illustrated edition here. And then the Inheritance Cycle, just in general, all 4 of these amazing, illustrious, beautiful books. This is one of the book series that got me into reading. So, basically, when I was around 13, that's when I got into reading. But a secret that maybe you did know or didn't know about me is before I got into reading, I hated reading with a burning passion. It was my least favorite thing to do. I hated doing it so much. I absolutely hated reading. Like, I hated it. And then, you know what happened? I read Harry Potter. And then I was like, oh my gosh, Harry Potter is the best thing to ever exist. And then I read Aragon. And I was like, okay, yep, I'm obsessed. Aragon's the best thing ever, along with Harry Potter. So, for years, this has been on my favorites list. It has fluctuated up and down throughout the list because other things come above it or go below it and all of that. But this will always be on my top 10 list because I just personally love Christopher Paolini. So far, I think I've read every single thing he's ever written. I've read the Fractalverse novels, and I've read the entire Inheritance Cycle. I have read Forked Worm, and I have read Murtagh, and I've loved every single book. Obviously, the Fractalverse isn't like my favorite thing ever, but I still had a really fun time, and it was a really good book, and it's still Christopher Paolini, so it was still a good book. But the Inheritance Cycle is one of the best things, and yes, I actually can say within the Inheritance Cycle that I have a favorite because obviously, Inheritance is the best one. The one on the bottom here that I didn't pull out. Inheritance is definitely the best one, but they're all amazing. Coming in at number 5, another nonfiction, another history, another World War II related book, and that is Unbroken by Laura Hillenbrand. It's the one book I literally will and have recommended to every single person on the planet. Anytime someone says, oh, you like books, what books do you recommend? This is the first book that comes out of my mouth. This is the first book I recommend. This is the first book that I'm like, even if you don't like history books, read this book. Even if you're not interested in history, read this book. Read it, no matter whether you like history, whether you love history, whether you don't like history at all, read this book. I firmly believe that this book is so phenomenal. Laura Hillenbrand is a phenomenal writer. I still need to read Sid Biscuit. I know, what's wrong with me? But I read this years ago now, and it has been on the top, like, 3 books ever since. Now it's number 5. Obviously, some other things have jumped above it. Book is absolutely insane. Highly recommend. This book is so good. Coming in at number 4, we have The Stormlight Archives by Brandon Sanderson. This book series, what to say, each book is over 1,000 pages long. So if you're, for some reason, one of those crazy people who can't read giant books, first off, why? It's not that different from reading another book, it just takes longer. And second off, read it anyways. The Stormlight Archive, what to say about this? I don't know what to say about it. It's amazing. I'm not going to describe this because it's hard to describe. A lot of people have a hard time describing this, and I am also one of those people who's going to have a really hard time describing this book to you. If you like fantasy, if you like high fantasy with different worlds and different point of views, different characters, and just amazing world building, characters, magic systems, this is for you. Also, if you like thick books. This series is phenomenal. Coming in at number 3 is Anne of Green Gables by Ella Montgomery. And yes, this is a really old copy. I think this is from 1920. This is Anne of Green Gables by Ella Montgomery. One of the best novels / series. It is a whole series. There's 8 books. Well, technically there's 9 books. So this is absolutely phenomenal. Amazing. One of the best things I have ever read in my entire life. Every single book, every time I read the next book, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is just so good. Let's just say that I love Ella Montgomery so much, and I want to read everything she's ever written. In in a different way than Dickens, because with Dickens I want to read every single book and every novel and every short story he's ever written. But with Ella Montgomery, I want to read every single word that she's ever written. And I'm currently reading her journals, and they're amazing. Like, I want to read everything. And so far, I am on my way. So I'm so excited to get into more of her books, but Anne of Green Gables is so far her best, obviously. The whole series, not just this book, but her whole series. If I had to choose a favorite book, it's really impossible, but I have an attachment to Anne's House of Dreams. I don't know why, but that one always stands out in my brain as being like one of the best. Obviously the first one, because this introduces you as well. Book number 2, I can't hold up Lord of the Rings because my sister's borrowing my copy, but it's Lord of the Rings by Tolkien. I do actually have a favorite in the Lord of the Rings, and that is Return of the King, because for some reason the last book in the series is always my favorite. I don't know why that is, but it's just always the end of the series, the climax where the big fight happens, where the evil is defeated and all of that. So I don't know, maybe that's why, or maybe they're just extra good because it's the last book since I've had lots of time to get better at writing. I don't know. But Lord of the Rings by Tolkien is the classic fantasy novel. It is it's probably the most popular, well, second most popular fantasy novel. I think one other thing might come before it. Not sure about that. But it's one of the most popular fantasy novels. You know what happened? So, when I was a kid, we watched the Peter Jackson monstrosities. We watched them a lot when we were kids, and I used to love them when I was a little kid because I didn't know any better. But after I was like maybe like a young teen or like something, I slowly fell out of liking this movie, and I was just like, I think these are terrible actors, and this isn't really that good of a movie. Then I read the books. And first off, I was super shocked because I was like, oh my gosh, I like Frodo. How do I like Frodo? Like, I'm not supposed to like Frodo. If you don't know, the guy that plays Frodo in the movies, we call him Bug Eyes, and everybody that I know hates Frodo in the movies. Like, they all universally just acknowledge that he did a terrible job. I read this book, read The Lord of the Rings, and I was shocked because I was like, oh my gosh, do I actually love Frodo? What is happening right now? Like, what? And then I finished the series, and I got to the third book, and I got halfway through, and I was like, wait, I thought this was supposed to be over. I was so confused because how the movie works is the third movie, Return of the King, ends at the halfway point in the book. And then what proceeded to happen in the last half of the book was also the best part in the entire series. The Scouring of the Shire is the best part of the entire series, and they left it out of the movies. I love Lord of the Rings. Tolkien's the best. Book number 1, Harry Potter by J.K. Rowling. Of course, I had to mention the Harry Potter series by Rowling herself, the mastermind behind my favorite book series of all time. Obviously, this is number 1. This will always be number 1. I don't think anything can ever beat Harry Potter, ever. The only other thing that could even come close to beating Harry Potter would be Lord of the Rings. And for me, it just, like, by a hair, it just doesn't beat it by, like, a hair. Because Harry Potter is the book series that got me into reading. The whole reason that I'm obsessed with books right now is because of Harry Potter. The whole reason I've read all of the books that I've read within the past however many years is because of this book right here. Well, the series. When I was 13, or before I was 13, like I mentioned before, I hated reading. Then, my sister was reading Harry Potter, and she was, like, obsessed or whatever at the time. And I was like, ooh, this seems kind of interesting. So, I picked it up when I was 13, and I haven't looked back since. It's been my favorite series ever since I was 13. Literally, I have never had any other book series beat Harry Potter since I was 13. This has been my favorite book series for however many years it's been since I was 13. 27 years old, and it's still my favorite book series of all time. And one of the things that, like, the story It's phenomenal. It's just, I don't need to talk about the story because you know what Harry Potter is. Someone who doesn't know has been obviously living under a rock, because this is one of the most popular books in the entire universe. No joke. This used to be like number 2 on the list of most bought books or popular books, or yeah, I think it was bought books or whatever in the world. It's gone down a couple of notches. Thank goodness the Bible has like gone above it. I think the Bible's always been above it. But like there's a few other books that have come above it. Now it's like maybe number 5 or 6 or something. But it's still on the top most read books of all time, which is kind of insane when you think about that. I have read this series over 11 times. I have never ever in my lifetime read a book more than like 2 or 3 times, unless you count Narnia, which I've listened to the audiobooks for billions of times. But reading like physically, I've never physically read a book more than like 2 or 3 times. I've read Harry Potter, every single book, physically, 10, well, almost 11 times, because I'm on my 11th reread physically, and I've listened to the audiobooks countless times. I have never done that with any other book in my life. Most books I've either read twice, maybe there's a few I've read 3 times, but that's kind of like the limit. And the reason that I'm holding up Deathly Hallows is because I do have a favorite Harry Potter book, and that is Deathly Hallows, of course, the last book in the series, and the best one of the series. One time I was talking with my family about what their favorite books were. I think I was just talking to my dad and my brother, and my brother said that this was like his favorite book. Like, I was shocked because my dad put this on his top favorites list. I think it was like top 5 or something like that. And I was kind of shocked because like I knew my dad like enjoyed this, but I didn't think he thought it was like top 5 material. So I was a little shocked by that one, because I was like, wow, like this just goes to show you how good this book series is. But obviously the number 1 book to ever exist will always be the Bible. But I don't put that on these lists because it doesn't compare to any other novel to ever exist. It is the Bible. Like, it is the one, the only. You know what I mean? So like that just doesn't go on a list like this. Obviously, for me, Harry Potter will never fluctuate. It'll always be number 1. That is my top 10 books of all time as of 2024. This may change in the future. I might read another book and be like, this beats that book and this needs to go on the list now. But as of the books that I've read so far in my lifetime, that is my top 10. And I hope you enjoyed this. And I am very freezing, and I just want to go lay down and read a book in my bed because I'm cold right now. So I'm going to go read, and I will get back to you some other time. And I will see you in the next one. I hope you have your own fun reading adventures.